The final transmission from the UES Defiant sliced through subspace channels, traveling faster than the explosion that consumed the vessel. Back on Earth, in the dimly lit Situation Room of the Unified Space Command, Admiral Helena Voss watched in stunned silence as the attack unfolded on the main display. The transmission showed Captain Chen's calm face, even as warning klaxons blared around her. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Defiant. We are under unprovoked attack by vessels identifying as the Galactic Conclave. Our weapons remain powered down. I repeat, we have taken no hostile action." Her voice remained steady even as the bridge shook violently around her. "I am transmitting all sensor data and diplomatic exchanges. Earth must know what happened here. We came in peace." The transmission abruptly ended with a blinding flash. The room fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the soft beeping of communications equipment. Admiral Voss gripped the edge of the tactical table, her knuckles white. "Verification complete," announced Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, his voice hollow. "All data packets authenticated. The Defiant has been destroyed with all hands." Admiral Voss straightened her back, her face hardening into a mask of controlled fury. "Send word to the Security Council. Priority Alpha. I want every head of state on a secure channel within the hour." As the room erupted into controlled chaos, Dr. Eliza Vasquez, the command's chief xenolinguist, remained frozen in her seat, staring at the last frame of the transmission. Her sister's face, preserved in that final moment of dignified courage, would now become the symbol for humanity's first interstellar tragedy. 12 hours later, the announcement was made to a shocked world. Scenes of disbelief and mourning spread across every continent. The crew manifest of the Defiant was released, putting names and faces to the 342 souls lost. They had been Earth's finest: scientists, diplomats, engineers, pilots, a carefully selected cross-section of humanity's best, sent to extend a hand of friendship to the stars. In Geneva, the Security Council chambers had never seen such unity. Representatives from nations that had been adversaries for generations now sat shoulder to shoulder, reviewing the sensor data from the Defiant's final minutes. "The attack was deliberate and unprovoked," stated the Chinese representative, his normally measured diplomatic tone replaced with cold anger. "They did not even attempt communication before firing." The Defiant's final transmission contained comprehensive scans of the attacking vessels, added Dr. Hiroshi Takahama, Earth's leading xenotechnologist. "We have their energy signatures, weapon configurations, and shield frequencies. Most importantly, we have their language." In the corner of the room, a team of linguists and AI specialists worked feverishly, extrapolating a translation matrix from the brief communications intercepted between the alien vessels. "This Admiral Zex Thal referred to us as primitive vermin," translated Dr. Vasquez, her voice tight with controlled emotion. He ordered the Defiant's destruction as a border sanitization procedure. There was dissent among their commanders. The species they called Etheri argued for diplomatic protocols. The Secretary General stood slowly, scanning the faces in the room. "For the first time in human history, we face an existential threat that isn't of our own making. Our divisions end today." He paused, his weathered face grave. "What happened to the Defiant will not happen again. Effective immediately, I am calling for the implementation of the Prometheus Protocol." Around the table, heads nodded in solemn agreement. The Prometheus Protocol, a theoretical framework developed decades ago for humanity's unified response to first contact gone wrong, would now become reality. In orbit above Mars, the dormant shipyards of Deimos Station received their activation codes. Deep within secure facilities across Earth, classified xenotech research was brought into the light. Operation Reckoning had begun. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had once been the domain of independent miners and research outposts. Now it housed humanity's greatest secret. Commander Elena Vasquez floated through the central fabrication chamber of Construction Station Olympus, her magnetic boots disengaged to better navigate the sprawling space. Beneath her, The primary hull of the Aegis Reckoning stretched like a metallic horizon, construction drones swarming across its surface in choreographed precision. 3 years, she whispered to herself. 3 years from outrage to this. Chief Engineer Takeshi Yamamoto joined her at the observation point, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic schematics hovering before them. The gravitational displacement engines will be operational by Thursday, he reported, pride evident in his voice. We've successfully integrated the reverse-engineered conclave shield harmonics. Their weapons were designed to counter their own technology, not ours. Our hybrid approach should give them a nasty surprise. Alina nodded, her eyes never leaving the magnificent vessel taking shape below. And the quantum communications array. Installed and tested, we can maintain real-time communication with Earth Command, regardless of distance or intervening stellar masses. Yamamoto hesitated. Commander, the integration of the targeting system is complete, but I must again express my reservations about. Your reservations are noted, Takashi, Alina interrupted gently. But the decision has been made. The Reckoning isn't just a warship, it's a message. She pushed away from the railing, gliding toward the massive viewport that revealed the star-speckled blackness beyond their hidden facility. The loss of her sister Sarah aboard the Defiant had changed Alina in ways she was still discovering. The rage had crystallized into something harder, colder, more focused. Intelligence estimates that the Conclave has already forgotten about us, she said. They destroyed the Defiant and moved on, considering the matter closed. They've underestimated us twice. First our peaceful intentions, then our resolve. Later that evening, Alina addressed the assembled crew in the station's central hub. 500 faces looked back at her, the best Earth had to offer, selected from millions of volunteers. Some were veterans of Earth's space forces. Others were civilian specialists who had never imagined serving on a military vessel. All had sacrificed normal lives for years of secret preparation. Tomorrow we begin integration exercises aboard the Reckoning, she announced. In 3 weeks we launch. This mission carries the hopes and determination of every human being on Earth, but make no mistake about our purpose. We are not seeking conquest or dominion. We are not even seeking vengeance, though I know many of you carry that in your hearts. She paused, making eye contact with several crew members who, like her, had lost loved ones on the Defiant. Our mission is recognition. Humanity will no longer be ignored, dismissed, or destroyed with impunity. We will force the Conclave to acknowledge us as equals in this galaxy. After the briefing, Alina retreated to her private quarters. On her desk sat a framed photo, herself and Sarah as young cadets, arms around each other's shoulders, the Earth rising behind them during their first orbital training mission. Next to it lay a small wooden box containing Sarah's service medals, recovered from their parents' home before Alina left Earth. I'm not doing this for revenge, Sarah, she whispered to the empty room. But I will make them remember your name. Across the station, the final preparations continued around the clock. The Reckoning's massive weapons systems underwent calibration, its revolutionary stealth systems received final adjustments, and its advanced defensive suites were subjected to increasingly demanding simulations. In 3 weeks, humanity would announce its return to Conclave space, this time on their own terms. Aboard the primary command vessel of the Conclave Patrol Fleet, Captain Thrix of the Novali species stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The human ship, massive, sleek, and utterly impossible, hung in space before them, seemingly unconcerned with the 6 patrol vessels now surrounding it. Impossible, muttered his executive officer, mandibles clicking in agitation. Our perimeter sensors registered nothing. No warp signature, no gravitational distortion, no hyperspace window. It simply appeared. Thrix's compound eyes reflected the holographic representation of the human vessel. Scan it again. There must be an explanation. On the bridge of the Reckoning, Commander Vasquez stood calmly at the center of a controlled storm of activity. Lieutenant Rivera at Tactical reported, Conclave vessels are scanning us with increasing power. Their weapon systems are charging, but targeting arrays appear to be experiencing calibration errors. As expected, Vasquez nodded. The phase-shifting countermeasures are working perfectly. Communications Officer Chen interrupted. "Commander, we're receiving transmissions from all vessels. They're demanding identification and immediate surrender. Open a channel to all ships simultaneously," Vasquez ordered, "and prepare the linguistic package." The main viewscreen split into 6 segments, each showing the bridge of a different conclave vessel. The commanders fell silent as Vasquez addressed them in flawless conclave standard, her voice carrying the precise intonations required for formal diplomatic address. "I am Commander Elena Vasquez of the HMS Reckoning, representing the United Earth Government. 3 of your stellar cycles ago, your forces destroyed our vessel, the UES Defiant, killing 342 peaceful explorers without provocation or warning." She paused, allowing her words to register. "We have returned to establish diplomatic relations, properly this time." The conclave commanders exchanged glances of confusion and alarm. The Vexari captain, his scaled face flushing violet with rage, barked, "You will power down your systems and prepare to be boarded, or—" Vasquez raised a hand, and the Vexari's transmission abruptly cut off. "I was not finished speaking," she continued to the remaining commanders. "As a demonstration of our technological capabilities and our commitment to peaceful resolution, we have temporarily disabled the weapons targeting systems on your vessels. They will be automatically restored once our message has been delivered to the conclave high chamber." In that chamber, nearly a light-year away, pandemonium had erupted. The quantum entanglement communicators used by conclave leadership transmitted the patrol fleet's encounter in real time. Grand Admiral Zex Vol pounded his armored fist against the chamber's ancient stone table. "This is some form of deception. Humans do not possess such technology," he roared. The Etheri speaker, Luminara, rose from her crystalline seat, her luminescent form pulsing with concern. "The evidence suggests otherwise, Admiral. The vessel's specifications exceed anything in our databanks. Moreover, they have demonstrated remarkable restraint. They disabled our outposts without casualties and have not fired upon our patrol fleet despite provocation." "Restraint," Zexthul spat. "They are savages barely out of their gravity well. This restraint you praise is merely the hesitation of primitives confronting their betters." The chamber's massive doors swung open as a junior communications officer rushed in, eyes wide. "Esteemed leaders, the human vessel is broadcasting on all frequencies across conclave space. They have bypassed our encryption protocols as if they didn't exist. On every communications device throughout the 7 worlds of the conclave, Commander Vasquez's message began to play. It started with the complete, unedited sensor log of the Defiance destruction, followed by humanity's formal request for diplomatic recognition and reparations. In the high chamber, silence fell as the leaders of the 7 most powerful species in the Orion Arm confronted a truth none had anticipated. The primitives had returned, and they were primitive no longer. Grand Admiral Zex paced the command deck of the Victory Eternal, his clawed hands clasped behind his back. The magnificent viewports revealed his assembled armada, hundreds of warships arranged in the legendary spear formation that had brought countless civilizations to their knees. At the formation's heart, the 7 dreadnoughts of the Conclave's elite Dominion fleet pulsed with energy, their planet-killer weapons primed and ready. "The human vessel approaches, Admiral," announced his tactical officer. "Still alone. No support craft detected." "Impossible," muttered the Admiral's senior advisor. "No species would send a single ship against our assembled might. Perhaps their vessel is automated, a sacrifice to gauge our capabilities." Zexful's scaled lips pulled back in a predatory smile. "Or perhaps they are simply fools who have stumbled upon technology they do not fully comprehend. Prepare the synchronized barrage. I want that vessel reduced to its component atoms." Aboard the Reckoning, Commander Vasquez studied the tactical hologram displaying the conclave formation. Her senior staff stood silent around the command table, the gravity of their situation evident in their focused expressions. "Tactical analysis complete," reported Lieutenant Commander Zhang. "Their formation is designed to create overlapping fields of fire with synchronized weapons discharge. No conventional shielding system could withstand it." "Good thing we're not conventional," Vasquez replied. She turned to her chief engineer. "Yamamoto, status of the adaptive shield array." "Fully operational, Commander. Quantum predictive algorithms are calibrated and running. The shield frequencies will shift nanoseconds before their weapons fire, rendering their energy signatures ineffective." Vasquez nodded. "And our countermeasures?" "The gravitational disruptors are primed," Chief Weapons Officer Hassan confirmed. "Targets prioritized according to threat assessment. We can disable approximately 28% of their fleet in the initial salvo without causing catastrophic damage to their vessels." Vasquez straightened, adjusting her uniform. "Begin approach. Standard velocity. Let them get a good look at us." The Reckoning glided forward, its massive form dwarfed by the surrounding Conclave fleet. On the Victory Eternal, targeting officers finalized their calculations, confidence growing as the human vessel made no attempt to evade. "They're not even raising shields," one officer noted with confusion. "Fire," Zexthul ordered, his voice almost casual. Hundreds of energy weapons discharged simultaneously, the combined power sufficient to shatter a small moon. The space around the Reckoning bloomed with deadly energy, but where destruction should have occurred, there was only a strange visual distortion as the shields absorbed and redirected the incoming fire. "Impossible," Zexthul roared, slamming his fist against his command console. "Fire again. All batteries." A second barrage launched, with identical results. Before a third could be ordered, the Reckoning responded. Not with conventional weapons, but with precisely calibrated gravitational disruptors that created localized space-time distortions around key conclave vessels. Ships suddenly found themselves unable to maintain position, their engines fighting against invisible forces that pulled them out of formation. "What's happening?" demanded Zexthul as the Victory Eternal itself began to shudder. "Unknown technology," his science officer replied, voice trembling. "They're somehow manipulating gravitational fields with unprecedented precision. Our formation is compromised. Targeting systems can no longer establish stable locks." The perfect spear formation collapsed into chaos as nearly a third of the fleet drifted helplessly. The Reckoning moved through the disarray with deliberate grace, systematically disabling propulsion and weapons systems without destroying a single vessel. From her command chair, Vasquez watched the operation unfold exactly as simulated. "Send the message," she ordered quietly. Throughout the Conclave fleet, communications officers received the same transmission. A detailed analysis of the flaws in their vaunted spear formation, along with a formal invitation to cease hostilities and begin diplomatic negotiations. On the Victory Eternal, Grand Admiral Zexthul stared at the message in stunned silence, his worldview crumbling alongside his perfect formation. The Grand Hall of Harmonia shimmered with crystalline beauty, its translucent walls refracting the planet's dual suns into dancing patterns of light. Commander Vasquez stood at the center of the diplomatic delegation from Earth, 7 senior officers and 3 civilian specialists flanking her position. Across the circular table, representatives of the 7 conclave species regarded the humans with emotions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed hostility. Dr. Marcus Chen stepped forward, activating a holographic display that expanded above the table. The projection showed thousands of intercepted conclave transmissions, scientific analyses of their technology, and detailed cultural studies spanning decades. "For over 60 Earth years, we have been listening," he explained, his voice carrying perfect inflections in conclave standard. "Our first detection of your communication networks occurred in 2163 by your reckoning. Rather than announcing ourselves immediately, we chose to learn." The Tyrannian representative, a methane-breathing entity enclosed in an environmental suit, leaned forward. "You claim to have monitored our communications for decades without detection. Our encryption protocols err. based on quantum entanglement principles that your scientists believe unbreakable, interrupted Dr. Sanvi Patel, Earth's leading quantum physicist. We approached the problem differently. We didn't break your encryption. We learned to predict it. Murmurs spread among the conclave representatives. Luminara of the Aetheri raised a crystalline appendage, bringing order to the proceedings. These revelations are disturbing, she acknowledged, her bioluminescent form pulsing with thoughtful patterns. They suggest we have gravely misjudged humanity's technological development, yet they do not explain your restraint. After our inexcusable action against your exploratory vessel, you had both cause and capability for devastating retaliation. Commander Vasquez stepped forward, her uniform still bearing the insignia of the destroyed Defiant alongside that of the Reckoning. Restraint defines humanity as much as innovation, she replied. Our history contains enough bloodshed to teach us its futility. We could have responded with overwhelming force. Instead, we chose to demonstrate just enough capability to ensure you would listen. The Novali representative chittered softly, compound eyes reflecting the holographic displays. Your species continues to contradict our assumptions. Our preliminary studies suggested humans were fractious, territorial, and technologically primitive. We were, Vasquez acknowledged with a slight smile. The destruction of the Defiant changed that. Nothing unites humans like a common threat, or a common tragedy. At the far end of the table, Admiral Zex, Thul finally broke his sullen silence. Pretty words to disguise naked aggression. You violated our territory, dismantled our defenses, and now claim peaceful intentions. Your actions at Nexus Point humiliated the finest fleet in 12 sectors. Your fleet remains intact, Vasquez countered calmly. Not a single casualty. Not a single vessel destroyed. Compare that to your response when our unarmed exploratory ship entered your space. The Quantum Collective representative, a shimmering field of energy contained within an articulated mechanical frame, emitted harmonics indicating agreement. The human argument is logically sound. Their demonstration of force was precisely calibrated to avoid casualties while proving capability. This suggests genuine diplomatic intent. As the debate continued, intelligence officers on both sides observed one another carefully. Human analysts noted the subtle body language of the various species, feeding observations to their diplomatic team through discrete neural interfaces. Meanwhile, Conclave security personnel scanned the humans with increasingly sophisticated methods, searching for hidden weapons or communication devices. Late in the day, as negotiations paused for environmental adjustments to accommodate the diverse biological needs of the attendees, Luminara approached Commander Vasquez privately. Your technology exceeds our intelligence estimates by at least 70 years, she noted. How did humans advance so rapidly without detection? Vasquez considered the question before answering. When repeatedly underestimated, there's a certain advantage in allowing others to maintain their misconceptions. Outside the Grand Hall, the Reckoning maintained its position in high orbit, a silent reminder of humanity's newfound place in the galactic order. The warning came 3 microseconds before impact, barely enough time for the Reckoning's automated defense systems to partially reinforce the shields. Energy beams lanced upward from Harmonia's surface, converging on the human Dreadnought with devastating precision. The ship's superstructure groaned under the assault as sections of the hull superheated and ruptured. On the bridge, Commander Vasquez was thrown violently against a bulkhead as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Blood streamed from a gash above her eye, but she pushed herself upright, instinctively checking the status of her bridge crew. "Damage report," she called out, her voice steady despite the chaos. Lieutenant Rivera, nursing a dislocated shoulder, managed to reach his tactical station. Multiple hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Weapons systems offline. Shields at 28% and failing. Engineering reports casualties. Vasquez tapped her neural interface. Engineering status. Chief Engineer Yamamoto's voice came through, background filled with the hiss of fire suppression systems. Primary power grid compromised. Switching to backup systems. Commander, these energy signatures, they are using Harmonia's planetary defense grid against us. Another barrage struck the ship, more devastating than the first. Conduits exploded across the bridge, showering the crew with sparks and debris. 15 confirmed casualties, reported Dr. Rahman, the chief medical officer, her voice tense. Critical injuries on multiple decks. Medical teams responding, but we need to stabilize the ship. Vasquez made the only decision possible. Initiate emergency protocols. Prepare for immediate departure from orbit. As the Reckoning's damaged engines struggled to respond, a transmission broke through the chaos. Luminara's crystalline form appeared on the main view screen, her bioluminescence pulsing with patterns indicating extreme distress. Commander Vasquez, the defense grid has been compromised. Vexari operatives bypassed our security protocols. We are attempting to regain control, but... The transmission cut off as another blast rocked the ship. Vasquez turned to her helmsman. Break orbit immediately. Emergency thrust. The Reckoning lurched painfully away from Harmonia, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from its wounded hull. As the ship struggled to reach safe distance for FTL activation, Vasquez received fragmentary transmissions from the planet's surface, confused apologies from the Aetheri, demands for surrender from Vexari commanders who had suddenly emerged from hiding, and distress calls from the other diplomatic delegations caught in what was rapidly becoming a coup attempt. In the ship's damaged engine room, Chief Engineer Yamamoto crawled through a maze of twisted metal and exposed circuitry, manually rerouting critical power systems. His uniform was singed, his hands bleeding from countless small cuts, but his focus never wavered. Keller bypassed the primary EPS conduits. He ordered a junior engineer, reroute through the secondary grid. We need to maintain shield integrity until we can make the jump. He paused, studying the readouts on his portable diagnostic unit. The attack pattern. It's systematic. They knew exactly where to hit us. On the bridge, Vasquez reached the same conclusion. They targeted our shield generators first, then weapons, then propulsion, she noted grimly. This wasn't an improvised assault. They had our complete schematics. Communications Officer Chen looked up from her station, eyes wide. Commander, we're receiving a broadcast from Harmonia. It's being transmitted across all Conclave frequencies. The view screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Zex, Thul standing in the Grand Hall, surrounded by heavily armed Vexari troops. Behind him, representatives of the other Conclave species were being detained at weapon point. Let this be a lesson to all who would threaten Conclave supremacy, he announced, scaled face twisted in triumphant malice. The human menace has been neutralized. Their vessel flees, broken and defeated. The natural order is restored. As the Reckoning limped away from Harmonia, activating its damaged FTL drive, Vasquez's expression hardened into cold determination. Begin full sensor recording, she ordered. Every detail of this attack, every energy signature, every communication frequency. The Conclave just showed us exactly how their weapons work, and we're going to use that knowledge. The United Earth Council chamber fell silent as tactical projections filled the central holographic display. The Reckoning's battle damage appeared in stark detail. Hull breaches highlighted in red, compromised systems in yellow, casualty reports scrolling along the bottom in a grim tally. Admiral Zex, Thul believes he has won a decisive victory. Commander Vasquez continued, her uniform now replaced with a fresh one, though the healing cut above her eye remained visible. His broadcast across Conclave space claims the human threat has been neutralized. This perception gives us a critical advantage. Defense Minister Ibarra leaned forward. The casualties, Commander. 15 dead, 37 injured. Was the intelligence gathered worth such a cost? Vasquez's expression remained steady, though those who knew her well could see the weight she carried. Those lives will not be wasted, Minister. Our sensor suites captured everything. Weapons frequencies, shield modulations, targeting algorithms. Chief Engineer Yamamoto has already developed countermeasures based on the data. The holographic display shifted, now showing detailed schematics of Conclave defense systems with vulnerability points highlighted. More importantly, Vasquez continued, "We've confirmed that the Conclave is not the monolithic entity it presents itself as. The Aetheri, Novality, Teridian, and Quantum Collective representatives were detained during Zexthal's coup. Our intelligence indicates growing resistance to Vexari dominance among these species." General Santos, Earth's highest-ranking military officer, studied the tactical display with narrowed eyes. "You're suggesting we exploit these divisions." "I'm suggesting we recognize natural allies," Vasquez corrected. "The Aetheri in particular have sent encrypted transmissions expressing regret for the attack and offering covert assistance." President Chen, who had remained silent until now, stood slowly. "The time for hiding our capabilities has ended." Commander Vasquez's report confirms what we suspected. The Vexari Empire has dominated the Conclave through military force rather than genuine cooperation. Their response to our diplomatic overtures proves they cannot be reasoned with. She turned to General Santos. "Activate Operation Lighthouse." Throughout Earth's solar system, hidden construction facilities suddenly hummed with activity. Massive hangar doors slid open in the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, revealing 5 dreadnoughts of the same class as the Reckoning, each commanding 15 support vessels, ships that had been built in secrecy alongside the Reckoning, their existence unknown even to most of Earth's military leadership. Aboard the repaired and upgraded Reckoning, now designated as Alpha Command, Commander Vasquez, promoted to Admiral, addressed the captains of the newly revealed fleet through secure quantum channels. "The Conclave believes they have seen the extent of human military capability," she told them, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had faced enemy fire and returned. "They believe we retreated in defeat. This misperception is our greatest weapon." Captain Hernandez of the Dreadnought Defiance, named in honor of the destroyed exploratory vessel, spoke for many when he asked, "Our primary targets." "Vexari military infrastructure only," Vasquez emphasized. "Precision strikes against weapons manufacturing, shipyards, and command centers. No civilian targets, no planetary bombardment, no indiscriminate destruction. We are not conquerors or exterminators. We are surgeons removing a cancer from the Conclave." The tactical display showed their planned approach vectors, paths that would bypass Conclave early warning systems using the stealth technology proven effective during the Reckoning's first mission. "The Aetheri resistance has provided us with classified navigational data," Vasquez explained. "Routes unknown even to most Conclave military vessels. We'll strike simultaneously at 12 critical targets, then offer protection to worlds willing to break from Vexari control." As the briefing concluded, Admiral Vasquez stood before the viewscreen showing Earth receding behind them. The blue-green planet that had united after tragedy now projected power beyond its system for the first time. "Remember why we fight," she told her officers quietly. "Not for vengeance, but for recognition. Not for dominance, but for safety. The stars belong to all of us. It's time the Conclave learned that lesson." Admiral Zexthal's command center shuddered as another orbital defense platform fell silent. The tactical display showed an unfolding catastrophe. Shipyards reduced to drifting debris, weapons facilities precisely neutralized, command nodes systematically isolated. Most disturbing of all, the attacks occurred with virtually no Vexari casualties. The facilities evacuated minutes before strikes through mysterious automated warnings. "Impossible," he hissed, scaled fists clenching. "We destroyed their only warship. These must be automated drones, or—" "They're not drones," his second-in-command, Commander Vrex, interrupted, her voice cold with accusation. "Our long-range sensors have confirmed at least 6 dreadnoughts of the same class as the vessel we damaged at Harmonia. They were waiting, hidden beyond our territory. You didn't destroy their only ship. You merely angered their entire fleet." Around the command center, other officers watched the exchange with increasing hostility. The Vexari military culture prized victory above all else and punished failure with equal passion. "The colonies are seceding," reported the communications officer, not bothering to hide his contempt. "The Aetheri have formally dissolved their ties to the Conclave. The Novali, Teridian, and Quantum Collective have followed suit. They're accepting human protection." Commander Vrext stepped closer to Zexthal, her hand resting casually on her ceremonial blade. "You claimed the humans were primitive savages. You promised their destruction would be simple. Instead, they've dismantled our military infrastructure in 3 days, turned our allies against us, and done so without creating a single martyr for us to rally around." The command center doors slid open as a contingent of elite guards entered, their loyalties now clearly shifted. "The High Command has voted," Vrex announced. "You are relieved of duty, effective immediately." Across Conclave space, or what had been Conclave space until days ago, the political landscape transformed. On Harmonia, the crystal spires once again glittered in the dual sunlight, now flanked by the hovering form of the human Dreadnought Vigilance. In the rebuilt Grand Hall, representatives of Earth and 7 former Conclave worlds gathered around a circular table with 8 equal sides. Admiral Vasquez, representing Earth, stood to address the assembly. Her dress uniform now wore both the insignia of the Reckoning and a new emblem, 8 stars in a circle against a field of deep space. "Today we establish not a hierarchy, but a community," she began, her voice carrying throughout the chamber without technological amplification. "Not an empire, but a fellowship. The Treaty of 8 Stars recognizes the sovereignty of all intelligent species and establishes protocols for peaceful contact with emerging civilizations." Luminara of the Aetheri rose next, her crystalline form pulsing with patterns that conveyed deep emotion. For 12 millennia, the Conclave existed as a tool of Vexari dominance, cloaked in the language of cooperation. It took the arrival of humanity, a species we grievously wronged, to show us another path. One by one, representatives of each world signed the treaty, not with conquest or coercion, but with free will and recognition of mutual benefit. When the ceremony concluded, the Quantum Collective representative approached Admiral Vasquez. "Your species continues to confound our predictive algorithms, the energy being observed, its mechanical frame shifting to approximate a posture of curiosity. When attacked, you develop not just weapons, but ethics. When victorious, you sought not subjugation, but partnership." The mathematical probabilities of such responses were vanishingly small. Vasquez smiled, watching as diplomats from worlds light years apart engaged in animated conversation across the hall. "Perhaps that's our greatest strength," she replied. "We defy expectation." Later, as the celebration continued, Vasquez stood alone on a balcony overlooking Harmonia's breathtaking landscape. Dr. Marcus Chen joined her, carrying 2 glasses of Aetheri luminescent nectar. "To Sarah," he said quietly, offering a toast to his sister, the captain of the destroyed Defiant. "To recognition," Vasquez replied, raising her glass toward the stars, now shared by 8 worlds as equals.